Welcome to Roundel Live. Today we're talking about the place where the news gets the news, where the keyboard warriors feel at home. We're talking about ManxForums.
Tapping away.
So, an episode that's not really news related, but a look at a site that has been an Isle of Man institution for many years.
And you are part of that institution. You
Yes,
are a
indeed.
regulator and overseer. You know it inside out, and you can see all this activity. We had a little bit chat about the stats beforehand. And how many users have you got?
Registered over 10,000. But
10,000.
what we see is obviously a lot of people come and go, and there's spam in there and whatnot. But what we see is a lot of people read it and browse it, but only a core group tends to really post on it. But it is being read, and it's being read by all the politicians, it's being read by all the news guys.
So just tell me, so when you're sat at home and you're thinking, I need to catch up on the news, do you go to the online paper service, or do you go to the radio station, or do you go to ManxForums really to find out what's going on?
All three, really, but what we found with ManxForums in the past, and a lot of people criticize us for this, but I will always defend it. I'm one of the admins on it. You can probably guess my username. It's not very hard. And I use a lot of screenshots of it, of course, here as well. What we found, or what I think, and I will always defend, is this is a place where people can anonymously post. So we do now, all you need is an email address and you pick a username. You don't have to tell people who you really are. A lot of people don't like that. A lot of people in government don't like that because a lot of big stories have broken on here anonymously. But I will always defend it because the element is a small place. If you rant on Facebook under your real name, they're going to say, oh, there's that Ged guy again.
But remember, a lot of civil servants are embargoed, aren't they, about
Yes, that as
speaking
well.
out on social media. So it gives a platform maybe for some
It's very,
truthfulness
very
to-
important to have that. And our track record in terms of breaking huge stories proves us right. I mean, some of the biggest stories in the last 20 years were broken on ManxForums.
Come on, then. Shock me.
A certain previous chief minister's holiday cottages.
I remember
That
that
was
one.
ManxForums. More recently, a certain election story involving a certain celebrity chef. That was ManxForums.
You don't see much of him nowadays, do you? Really?
No, but that was broke on there because we always have a sub-forum for elections, and a lot of candidates post as well. Some of our politicians. Chris Thomas is registered. Stu Peters posts regularly.
Rob Collins, he's got his own thread.
Yes. Yeah, so they're all on there. They all read it. Not all of them post on there, and yeah, we this story about this certain chef that broke after someone posted certain information anonymously. Said, guys, you should look into X, Y, and Z, and then someone looked into X, Y, and Z and went, oh, look at this. And the can of worms opened, and well, we all know what happened. So,
Well, that's across a number of platforms, and as we know, currently something that maybe linked to where your position is at Douglas City Hall. Are the scales of justice going to be tipped one way or the other? Who knows? But we are not allowed to talk about anything that's ongoing.
no, but we
of
do have,
course.
we have a ton, for example. So people always say, oh, you're going to censor things that are against the council, for example, because I'm a councillor. I've only been a councillor for about a year or thereabouts. I'm not censoring anything because I'm a councillor. That's stupid. In fact, there's a whole thread on here called "More Uselessness from DBC." If I was to censor that, I would have probably nuked that. People are free to post whatever they want. There is a line, and I have to be very clear about this. And the only line, and I'm on record saying this on the forum, and it's the legal line. If you do something that gets us in jeopardy as moderators, as admins, or personally, and someone sends us a letter, for example, good old Uncle Albert. We all remember Uncle Albert, the guy who really likes Mount Murray and those sorts of things. Many, many moons ago, when he was still alive, someone posted something he didn't like, and he considered to be defamatory. And next thing you know, I'm sitting in an office, surrounded by three of his lawyers, showing me prints of ManxForums. And luckily, we got out of it, but... So there is a legal line, If you start getting sued, if someone puts you in hot water, then we have to say ahem.
It's a dangerous game, but, as long as you stick to the facts and tell the truth. But I think what I do see, I dip into ManxForums now and again. Sometimes it does kind of makes you a little bit glum as it is, very negative, and I think things can go a bit personal. I think if anyone can avoid any personal, attacks, that's really important. I think commenting on what's happening on the news, but try not to include personalities.
Well,
is a
that's,
big deal.
people are anonymous, so I think they can get away with more. And to a degree, I agree, it's a good place to vent. I mean, not for me because everyone knows who I am, but
But the thing is, you must have had personal attacks, say, on yourself. I mean, like your dreadful dress sense and, your lack of, fashion taste and things like that. Surely that must feel quite personal.
what's
quite,
wrong with
quite
my dress
raw.
sense?
Well, it's getting a bit old now. We haven't got any TT shirts to buy in the high street.
Yes, I will have to bulk buy a few. Yeah, there are personal attacks, but again, it comes up to, a certain line, and then if people say certain things that will go into the legal area, that's when I draw the line. I probably have more patience than others, and I believe more in absolute free speech. In Germany, if we were in Germany, for example, if this forum was in Germany, if I call you a naughty word in Germany, you can actually report me to the police. It's a criminal offense. Here we have this absolute free speech, which I absolutely value. I can call you all things under the sun. Of course, you can still run off and try and sue me, but my threshold is quite high, and other people disagree with that. Other people think people shouldn't be allowed to post anonymously. This is wrong.
But
it's like,
it
go
does
away.
give
This is important.
people the opportunity to perhaps post things that are incorrect and not factual. I know that, my previous service in public public service gives you an understanding, say, of how the judicial system works. And then you can read things in there and you go, well, actually, that wouldn't happen. That's not quite right. There are those things, and it's this trail of, say, where information, can lead to, perhaps unpleasant things and unpleasant judgments.
Yeah, a classic example, which I didn't know before I became a counsellor, for example, and we have meetings with the neighborhood policing teams and, behind the scenes stuff where they inform us what they do. And a classic example is you read these stories. Someone posted on ManxForums, likes of the constabulary, saying, oh, this guy got arrested for 5 grams of cannabis. What an absolute waste of time. They dragged him to court over 5 grams. Idiots, blah, blah, blah. Get rid of it. And then when you speak to the coppers behind it, this is actually, we don't arrest people for 5 grams of cannabis. There would have been, things before that and before that and before that and before that. And this is the last resort. And we tried everything else. And there is more to it that doesn't come across in the news article. But then, knowing this, I can then, reply to such a post and say, actually, there's more to this, probably, that wouldn't just run out and do X, Y, Z. So it's where the minds come together and where all our experiences, there's a lot of incorrect stuff on it, but A, you can make up your own mind. I believe that, our users are reasonably intelligent, although with some of you, I'm not so sure. And B, that, the hive mind then posts, there's so many different opinions and so much different knowledge, especially local knowledge, then, people will reply.
And of course, for the likes of that example you just gave, you could say, well, actually, the police were probably clutching at straws to bang someone up, and it's the last resort on some legislation that's out of date, it's ancient, and just totally irrelevant to the lifestyle of people right across the board on the Isle of Man.
Yeah, I mean, we have a cannabis thread on here somewhere, and I think it should be legalized and taxed and happy days.
But it isn't going to happen.
But it's such a waste of resources.
It's one of those long arguments that we could go on about. I saw a lot of negatives, my former job, and really,
you were on the front line. So.
It is a complete waste of time now. I think there's going to be measures to control and actually make this safer and make it more relevant to our community now. And I think we've got to move that way. But are any of our MHKs brave enough to talk about it? Absolutely no way. It's like the silence is deafening about the roadworks in Ballasalla and around the south.
You're still stuck in
the
traffic every day.
Silence is deafening. I went through there today, and I went through the roundabout and I took a video and I put it on the Twitter, and there's room for 2 lanes. So we've had 4 days of unnecessary hassle, and you're talking about thousands of people who've been, had their, day displaced by 10 minutes, 15 minutes. The cheek of it, I tell you. Speaking of which, though, I just picked up on something you mentioned before. One of your biggest posters, I think it's Albert Tatlock, is that?
Yeah, I just made him a moderator recently.
So we've looked at him, and I reckon he's done about 30,000 posts. Yeah. So if you take 3 minutes per post, maybe longer, maybe shorter, that is actually 100 days of posting in what,
It's
10
impressive.
years?
We're busy place.
10 years. These people who've got their eyes on the community and what is going on the current affairs and what have you.
Well, it's been going. The longest running thread that I could find so quickly is the one about Manx Radio, because we love slagging off Manx Radio, don't we? And that started in 2006, and people are still replying to the same thread. It's, I don't know, 700 pages or something. So
And it's growing bigger and
it's
bigger.
bigger and bigger. It becomes a living historical document, if you want, you know.
Well, yeah, keep posting on the forums, but if you can, just do a little bit of good with your hard work and your research, you know, on the outer world, if you can, because there's a lot of research, a lot of information, and I think now on the Isle of Man, we need people who care about what's going on to actually act out and about, away from your keyboards and out on the streets and in the communities, because I think we're at a tricky point at the moment, aren't we? You know, on the economy and jobs and industry and what's going to happen in the future. This crazy plan that seems to be on the edge of being introduced.
100,000 people with
you
no
know.
resource. Great.
It's the elephant in the room or the emperor's new clothes. Pick your
Well,
choice.
we're running out of clothes. We'd established that.
Okay, we'll wrap it up. That's another one. Please comment in the box. Please subscribe. And thank you to our studio host as well for this ACE facility.
Yes.
Details in the box below.
See you next time.